Back at it with a recap and discussion of Season 2, Episode 3 of Power Book 3, Raising Kanan, Sleeping Dogs. So let's start off with RAQ. As anticipated, since things were kind of cleaned up back in the first episode, the second episode picked up steam, and now we have the same energy along the lines of what we had in the first season. So the third episode starts off with a bang, continuing to build in that energy of the previous episode. Juliana is at the bodega watching TV. Some kids are in the store trying to peek at adult magazines. She catches them. Someone else walks in, purchases a beverage. You get to see the person's face because the camera is at about Juliana's height. She's sitting behind the counter. So she's not really paying attention. She's watching TV, and you just see the person's chain. I was looking at it and thought it looked like Unique's jewelry. Usually he wears 2 chains, but in this case, he just has the Jesus piece. And so when I saw that, it kind of gave me pause. Juliana's into this TV show. She's not paying attention to the person that walks in. When she does look up, the person's put their item on the counter. She gives them back their change, but he's still standing there, at which point she does notice. When she looks up, we see the person pointing a gun at her. Now, Juliana was the one that provided the video to the police, and she's led to Unique being picked up, right? RAQ set the rest of the stuff in motion, but she provided the evidence that led to the police holding him. Another thing that gave me pause was that last episode, RAQ crossed paths with Unique's child mother. I believe her name is Vanessa. And I kind of raised an eyebrow as moving the stash to this store. RAQ is very frequently in and out of the store. It's a corner store. It's the neighborhood corner store. So it's not suspicious in and of itself. But the problem is that other people are also frequently in and out of the store. It might pique people's interest because often RAQ goes into the store. She likely spends more time there than most people would. Most people, they go in, it's a minute or two. They know what they want. They pick it up, pay, walk back out. Probably in and out of there less than 5 minutes. She goes in, she talks to Juliana. She used to talk to Gabriel. She's in the back of the store. Vanessa saw her walking from the back of the store. And it's if you don't own this store, why do you go in there so frequently? What do you have to talk about with the store owners? And likely they're bringing stuff in and out, but you never actually see her buying anything. I think it would make more sense if she goes into the store and every time she comes out, RAQ smokes, she chews gum. Buy a pack of gum. When you come out, make it a point to open the pack of gum, unwrap a stick, chew it. Make it a point when you go in, you buy a pack of cigarettes, walk out with it in your hand, tuck it into your purse or something like that. So there's just in case anyone's watching, there's some reason for you to be going into the store frequently. Likewise, when you go in there, try not to spend forever hanging around having conversations with Juliana or previously Gabriel. Be seen that there's an entrance at the back. Maybe however you can set it up. If you need to be in there for more extended amounts of time or you're bringing things in and out, do it at night when there's less people out on the street and use the back entrance. So that way, hopefully less people will see you going in and out. Your money's here. Juliana is often the only person there. And then it's she's just sitting in there. If someone decided to rob the place, what could she really do? I understand that you don't want people out in the corner selling, but this is New York. Guys typically hang out in the corner. Maybe what you might want to do is just take a few soldiers, rotate them, and have them post up on the corner. Scrappy's gone now, but he would have been the perfect guy to post up on the corner there. Maybe him and 2 or 3 other guys. They stand there, not selling drugs or anything like that, but just standing out in the corner, trash talking, do whatever it is. Just make it look like they're random guys standing around in the street. But really they should be there protecting the stash. Here it is that it's been left completely open. It's one thing if it was the other stash house where it was out of the way, no one's really looking. But here it is that RAQ goes in and out of here. It seems like she never used to visit the other stash house. You're setting yourself up to get robbed, especially because so much of your drama and whatnot has revolved around this store. So at this point, RAQ doesn't know that this is a problem. Instead, she's out in Jersey. It's unclear exactly what part of Jersey. They just say Jersey. So she's there with Marvin and some other guy. I can't remember his name. And it was explained in the preview to the season that RAQ is going to be looking to expand, right? One of the first places she looks to move to is Jersey. So the 3 of them are out in Jersey. She's gotten a tip from Worrell. His cousin lives out there that the local crew that had been serving this area was picked up by the feds. And at least for the foreseeable future, the territory is up for grabs. Seeing as no one else has rushed in to grab it up, RAQ sees it as an opportunity for them to kind of franchise, expand their business model and whatnot. She makes some good points. but they have their hands full with Baisley. They're just getting started at the 40s. They're building, right? They've got their hands a bit full. They know Queens. They know the south side of Queens. They know the other players. Jersey, sure, the drug business might be the same as far as how, your soldiers operate, the basics of it. But they're not from Jersey. They don't know the players out there. And it's like no one might have rushed in immediately and grabbed up this territory, but there are other players somewhere around. And as Marvin states, RAQ is kind of being a little bit rash, rushing into things without seemingly even doing any recon. She hasn't been, they're visiting now. She's now sharing this information with Marvin, but it doesn't sound like they've been out there to look at things to figure out who the local players are, what they're doing. They've been at work in Queens for quite some time, so they know the other people. But you're moving into new territory here. You don't know, you're from the outside coming in. It might be an opportunity, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have disadvantages or potential problems. It seems like RAQ is just looking at the upside, but not necessarily considering the things that can go wrong. Which up to this point, I will say, I've appreciated the growth of Marvin's character from what we've seen so far this season. Last season, he would have been the one with RAQ's mentality, how RAQ is moving right now, just grabbing everything up and not really thinking steps ahead. But here you see him being the voice of reason. RAQ is thinking expansion. RAQ's ambition is kind of unchecked here. And so now she arrives at the bodega and is shocked to find that it's locked up. Looks inside, lights are off, Juliana is seemingly nowhere to be found. And this is the middle of the day, or at least it's early morning. Store is locked up. Something's wrong. Now, let me just say, I think that this season they've been dressing RAQ more age appropriately. She's still boss lady, out in the street, aside from the one scene where you saw her meet up with Howard. And that it seemed like she rushed out the house. You still don't see her out in the street with jeans or anything like that on. She wears jeans at home. Still, again, she's out here in her boss lady outfits, right? Maintaining kind of this look that she has. I think the outfits from this season are an improvement. That's not to say I didn't like her outfits last season, but it was a lot of the same. These now are more age appropriate. They look like something someone in their early 30s might wear. They're more age appropriate and varied than they were last season. They mix it up a little bit more here. Where it's not just the long boots and pants with a coat kind of thing. Here you see her with different kind of outfits. There's more variety. In this episode, she had, in the first episode, she had on the bedazzled bustier thing with the mesh top thing going on, French roll, crimped hair, very early 90s. I don't really remember what she was wearing last episode. I think she had on some funny looking pants or something like that. And right, those red pants with the mesh top, or yeah, not mesh, but you know what I mean, lace. And then this episode, you see the bondage outfit with the straps and stuff on the top and the pants. The top is actually really nice. I like shiny materials, but it's this bold, vibrant red top with different accents, straps and metals and whatever. The pants are kind of weird looking. They look kind of like chaps at the top, or the combination looks like chaps. It's this metal looking business at the top and then a more plain looking bottom to it. But anyway, it's different, but the top is kind of dope, right? I like the complete look of it, along with the sunglasses, the hair, the boots. It's actually a really nice look. But anyway, so not finding Juliana at the store and the store being locked up, she tries to call her, doesn't get her. And turns out, I would expect, she actually has a key to the store. She looks around and this is the scene that we've seen in clips previews, where you see RAQ come barging through the bodega door with her gun drawn, because she opens the door with the key, but then obviously Juliana's supposed to be there, but she steps in, the lights are off, and it looks like a scene frozen in time. So she wisely pulls a gun, looking around to make sure that no one's there. She opens the door and her money is there, or it's supposed to be. But as she gets further and further into the store, it becomes more apparent that something is very wrong. Fearing the worst, she heads to the back, kind of knowing, that she's not going to like what she finds. And she goes to the room where she keeps her money, and it's absolutely empty. All of the money's gone. I think it's obvious that it wouldn't be Juliana, right? We see and we know that it's not her, right? Because when she walks in, it's like the scene of Frozen in time. The change is there on the counter. The drink is still there on the counter. The register's drawer is left open. The monitors for the TV, the security camera and all that kind of stuff. You can see it's been tampered in some way. The tapes are gone. The door is locked. Everything, like nothing looks right. She makes the right assumption that Juliana likely didn't run off with the money, that something happened to Juliana and the money was taken as well. Bear in mind the sacrifices that this woman has made to accumulate this money. She's done wrong, but she's basically risking prison, risking her life, and trying to pursuing accumulating this money. She's visibly anxious, and I think most people would be. And so with that, she tries to reach out with Lou. We see her paging. On his side, we see the page come through. He's at the recording studio working on some beats and whatnot. Nothing really pressing. But seeing the page come through and knowing that it's RAQ, he's there with his music and whatnot and ignores the page. This is something that we're seeing more frequently, where it's like he's into his music stuff and he picks and chooses what stuff he wants to be involved with regards to the drug business. The scene then shifts to Marvin, and it turns out that RAQ pages Marvin right as his anger management class is ending. So RAQ isn't aware that, sure, she has this problem with the bodega, but Kanan's also going to be causing some problems for her. She's not aware that she has problems with her business, but she's got problems with her son as well, right? We'll get to that in a moment. She's dealing with the issue of her stash getting raided. She meets up with Marvin. He mentions that they so happen to have a very major re-up coming in 2 days, and this is the money they're supposed to use to finance that. They can't go to Joaquin and tell him that the drugs were stolen. Marvin assumes that maybe Juliana ran off with the money, but RAQ, after seeing the inside of the store, and also because they do business with Joaquin, she figures out pretty quickly that there's no way that Juliana just ran off with the money. It has to be that someone took the money and they also took Juliana, because it would make no sense for Juliana to steal from them. She's getting money with them. They do business with her cousin. It would be like stealing from her cousin. And so RAQ doesn't really suspect Juliana being part of it. She sees her as potentially being a victim. And so either way, they can't go to Joaquin and tell him, because it's going to look crazy that, number one, they had their money stolen, and then secondly, that they allowed for Juliana to be grabbed up, right? It's going to look like they're not properly managing their business. They can't properly handle their affairs. And so for the time being, RAQ makes the decision to not immediately tell Joaquin. Problems all around for this woman. It kind of goes back to the first episode where Kanan stated that the mistake a lot of people make is when they start seeing a little bit of success, they get comfortable, they kick their feet up. As we see here, RAQ is kind of felt like she was in a victory lap. And here it is, just 2 episodes later, everything's falling apart for her again. She's got problems on her hand. Back to the first season where, she had business problems out in the street, and she had problems at home with Kanan. At least this time it's kind of like a reversal, where last season she had problems with her brother, but, she was having problems with Marvin and him not being dependable, him doing the wrong things and just constantly messing up. Whereas Lou was the dependable one. And now it's like she still has problems with one of the 2 brothers, but it's just reversed. As expected, it turns out that Unique was the one behind, grabbing up Juliana and RAQ's cash. But I think it was really just a way of him getting her attention and kind of forcing a come to Jesus moment, getting them together where they could sit down and talk, because otherwise she probably wouldn't have paid him any attention, or she would have come at him aggressively. He's able to get her, Marvin, Lou, and Warrell in one room. The only person missing is Howard, and I guess you can't really call him in because it's like illegal business taking place here. So they gather up, and basically he presents a situation as that him taking these things was insurance, a way to get RAQ's attention and to pretty much help guarantee the safety of himself, his child, and his child's mother. That he doesn't want any further static from her. He doesn't want her doing anything to him or his people. And I guess in a way, it's kind of a continuation, or it plays on from the conversation that he had with his child's mother last episode, where she mentioned in crossing paths with RAQ at the bodega that RAQ didn't say anything to her. She didn't do anything to her, but the look that RAQ gave her made her very uncomfortable. It made her feel unsafe. And so this is his way of having a conversation, letting them know that he admits that he's taken a loss here. He's going to leave the business alone, but from here on out, he doesn't want to be bothered by RAQ. He doesn't want to have to worry about RAQ. And so here it's kind of him showing that even having lost his crew with no backing or anyone around him, he was able to really put her and her organization in a dangerous spot, a tough position, snatching up all her cash, Juliana, all of that by himself. So it's in everyone's best interest for them to leave each other alone at this point, because sure, she's crumbled his organization, but him by himself can still be a problem. It's a display that you might want to leave him alone, because if you continue messing with him, things like this can continue to happen in the future. Him completely bringing your business to a standstill. It's sort of like assured mutual destruction, where it's in both of their best interests, given what they're capable of, and that they can create serious problems for each other, for them to just leave each other alone. Don't hit me. I'm not going to hit you. Let's just move on and give each other room. It doesn't need to be personal. Like, whatever's happened, we've both done wrong. Let's move on. She speaks to Unique. Supposedly she's going to get her money back. He's going to leave her alone. She'll leave him alone. But unless Unique is completely off the show, I don't buy that he's going to ride off into the sunset and the two won't clash again. But for now, RAQ is on the verge of being whole again from a business standpoint. But it's like she has unimaginable problems brewing with Kanan. The two of them lie to each other, her in ways that will likely be like emotionally damaging to Kanan, him in ways that can be physically damaging to her person and or her freedom. Regardless of everything, I don't think either of them, at least not at this point, would do anything to kill each other. But I do think that Kanan's actions can result in her death or imprisonment. I liked RAQ and Symphony together because I simply liked them together, but also because he's like a pressure valve for her and allowing her to relax and get away from the business. There's a growing distance between her and Kanan, which is kind of shutting down her motherly side as well. With those two sides of the character being overshadowed by the cold business side, is flattening the character. But you need those facets to bring balance to RAQ as a character. But maybe that's the point. Her going so hard in this one area at the expense of other parts of herself is a recipe for disaster. Though I will say that regardless of her issues with Lou, she seemingly brushed off Crown when he approached her about them teaming up to remove Lou from the record label. For all her fussing, some of it valid, so far she hasn't taken steps to affect Lou's business. I'm curious to see if that continues and what, if any, interaction she'll now have with Fareed, given that they've met and he was all on her. For all that flowery language, and while I love the Hollywood character in Queen Sugar, please don't make this man her new love interest. Fareed feels like a used car salesman and rubs me the wrong way. I don't get good vibes about him being involved with Lou's business and don't want to see RAQ deal with him personally or professionally either. Like, I just don't trust him. Kanan. So it's just one hit after another. Immediately after Unique roll up on Juliana, we see Howard rolling up on Kanan. RAQ has already left for the day. Kanan looks like he's on his way to school, or actually to meet up with Famous. He steps out the house and there goes Howard waiting outside. Initially, he's scared because something that's been bothering Kanan, and is probably one of the reasons why, if RAQ wanted to keep this secret going, to keep her lie going, she probably should have just left him in Virginia. Up to this point, Kanan has been scared of having any contact with Howard because he fears that Howard knows that he shot him and he might arrest him or try to get some kind of revenge against him. But yet, he steps outside the house and you can see the automatic fear in his face that Howard is standing there waiting for him. He states that his mom isn't there. Howard explains that he knows, but instead of doing something to him, he states that he just wants to talk to Kanan. And feeling some pressure because it's like, what else is he going to do? He gets into the car and talks to Howard, and pretty quickly, Howard tells Kanan that he's his dad. Now, we as the audience know this is true, but essentially RAQ tried to set it up from the previous episode to make it out like, to kind of give him warning that, Howard might approach him and he's going to be talking crazy and whatnot. It was awkward. Both of these individuals, RAQ and Howard, deal with Kanan awkwardly. So now here you have it that Howard has dropped this bomb on Kanan, telling him that he's his dad. And up to this point, he's believed that Defcon was his father. His mom has told him all his life that Defcon was his dad. He doesn't get into the details of him and RAQ's situation, but just kind of tells him, listen, just know that I'm your dad. And, when you were younger, I should have been around. I didn't really know until recently, but he knows it now and wants to be involved in Kanan's life, wants to be involved with him. It's a lot to take in for anyone. Number one, he's grown up without a father. Secondly, he's grown up with the idea that this man, Defcon, who wasn't around, was his dad. It sounds like he's in prison, but I'm not really sure what the situation is there, like if he's died or whatever. But whatever the situation, he's been out of the picture. It's pretty much just him being raised by RAQ. but he's known this man to be his father. This is who he's been told is his dad. And so here you have this guy who you've had all kind of contact with, none of it positive thus far, and he's telling you that he's his dad. I think it would be shocking for anyone. So, Kanan doesn't have an immediate reaction. Instead, he's just caught off guard and left speechless. It's something that he'll need time to process. So from this, Kanan goes to meet with Famous, who is still looking for a place. Honestly, I really don't care about Famous. I'm sorry, but I find him to be annoying, to be quite honest. He's loud. He's constantly talking. He's kind of useless. And I actually prefer D-Wiz to him, though he came with his own fair share of problems. I just don't like the character. But anyway, he mentions in passing that Scrap was found dead in some building, apparently after committing suicide. He's under the impression that Kanan already knew, right? With RAQ working with Scrappy, he just assumed that RAQ would have mentioned this to Kanan, that she would have told Kanan. But Kanan's actually shocked. He didn't know anything about it, that this has happened, and also that RAQ hasn't mentioned anything about it to him, which gives him pause. You can see that, he has questions. Kanan has spent time with Scrap, right? And Scrap has been there for him in moments of need. While their relationship might have started out somewhat contentious, over time they've developed a mutual respect and trust for each other. So to hear that he passed away, it caught him off guard. And especially because his mom didn't mention anything. He's finding out in passing. But Famous, being the selfish person that he is, doesn't really give Kanan any kind of time to process this. He has a crisis going on, which was really caused by him. And he's pushing Kanan to give him the attention that he needs to figure out this situation. And so with that, we see Kanan go to the apartment in Baisley under the pretense of looking for Marvin. And he slips a package of vials into his pockets while the workers aren't looking. Terrible idea. I know it's RAQ's kid, but if it was anybody else, I know she's not going to do anything to him, but this kid would just have to get the Scrappy treatment, cancel his Christmas, because I'm sure they know how much drugs are supposed to be there. And I'm pretty sure it's going to cause some kind of problems with the workers, because instead of going to your mom and asking her, hey, my friend's going through a hard time, can you maybe give me a few $100s to give to him? He goes and takes this package of drugs. Mind you, RAQ has already been robbed today. And here she is being robbed by her son. He slips it into his jacket, and I'm sure if someone notices that the drugs are missing, it's going to cause problems for the workers. I can't with this kid. Pretty much what he does is he takes Famous's mixtapes that nobody was buying. Sure, they tried to sell them. They've given up on that. The cops hassled them a little bit, but they now believe that they're selling these mixtapes. And so with the cops still under the impression that they're selling his tapes, Kanan has them dump out the tapes and instead put vials into the cassette cases. So, to the cops, it looks like they're still hustling the mixtapes, but really what they're doing is selling drugs. They're selling RAQ's drugs that Kanan has stolen. And it's if you go back to the first episode of the season where he's in the room with RAQ and he's crying to everyone about how scared he is and maybe not being cut out for this, not wanting to be involved, blah, 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 blah. She leaves him alone. She doesn't press him. She apologizes to him. She doesn't bring up, well, remember last season, which in their time is just a couple months ago, I was telling you to slow your roll, and she just leaves him alone. She apologizes. She said, you know what? I'm sorry for having you go out there and do what you did to Howard. I'm going to look out for you. I failed you as a mom in that regard. And from here on out, I'm going to do different. Don't worry about anything. She leaves him alone. Now, here you see it. She's completely removed him from the business once again. She has no expectations for him to be involved. But pretty much like it was last season, here goes Kanan pushing his way back into the business. And not just that, actively stealing from her. So just violation after violation. He steals drugs from his mom to help his friend, right? He goes out on the same corner where she's just told Warrell she doesn't want them selling drugs. She's explained that she's moved all of her business. She's actually moved even opposing crews off the street. She's taken the risk of not having, taken Warrell on to not have anyone sell on the corners. And here it is that he sets up shop on one of those very corners. It's just problem after problem with this kid. Kanan and Jukebox later at home, the two of them are in his room with the door closed, talking. right? Jukebox is kind of like a sounding board for him. He shares the conversation that he'd had with Howard earlier in the day, that Howard told him that he's his father. And so this is now another person that has heard this story thus far. Obviously, RAQ knows who she was sleeping with way back when, but it sounds like she's probably the only person outside of her and Howard, right? It's a pretty well-kept secret. It seems like the rest of the family were all under the impression that DEF CON was Kanan's father. And so in him telling Jukebox, she's not automatically dismissive of it, but, she kind of has it's so random. It seems like it's a random thing for someone to come up with, but she kind of advises him or kind of questions how exactly would you bring up this topic with RAQ? Her potentially sleeping with a cop in the past, this particular cop in the past. That's your mom. How are you going to have this conversation with her? It might not be regarded as being such a big deal because she was underage at the time, but I think the bigger issue would be it would lead to a lot of questions being asked, right? Because it's not like no one knew who this kid's father was, or the father was just some random deadbeat. But specifically that she labeled DEF CON, and DEF CON allowed himself to be labeled as the kid's father. Because I think part of the issue might be in revealing that Howard's actually his father, that it will call into question a lot of this street credibility. Now, granted, at this point, RAQ has been out here making moves, so I don't think it would completely dead her rep, but it might cause problems even for DEF CON, because it's why would you knowingly pass this kid off as being yours? I think it would lead to more questions than any of them really wants to have to provide answers for. It so happens that RAQ comes in, actually barges into the room to ask them if they'd been by the store, if they'd seen Juliana. Both reply no. Jukebox takes that as her cue to leave, and this leaves RAQ and Kanan in the room together, and he brings it up. Not really outright asking her about it, but really explaining that Howard approached him earlier in the day, said that he was his dad. She makes the decision to continue telling this lie, right? She actually laughs about it, explaining that, and this results in just Kanan and RAQ being left together, at which point he broaches the topic with her. Not really outright asking her about it, but explaining that Howard approached him earlier in the day and said that he was his dad. And she makes the decision to continue lying about it, right? She actually laughs about it. She explains that, she told him about this, he told her the same thing, but she kind of adds on to it to make it sound ridiculous. If she wanted to tell him the truth, this probably would have been the time. She could have just told him, close the door and tell him, listen, I was underage, blah, 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 blah. This is what happened. Obviously, she doesn't need to go into detail, but it's this would have been an opportunity to kind of clean the slate. But she makes the decision to continue lying to him about it. Not only does she lie to him about Howard, but she lies to him by omission about Scrappy. This is something else that he discussed with Jukebox, that she didn't mention anything to him about. And so when he asked her about it, why didn't you tell me? She plays it off as I just got so much stuff going on that I forgot to mention it to you. It's a pretty big thing to forget to mention. It's just this constant thing of them lying to each other. It's they could seemingly have a really great relationship. They had a great relationship, but because of the lies and secrets they keep from each other, it's there's just always something hanging over their heads. Kanan is later coming from wherever it is that he's coming from, and he steps off the bus. Howard is there waiting for him. Howard, continues pressing the case of, if you think of it, this goes back to the first episode where he kept approaching Kanan and, what has your mom told you about me? At first, Kanan used to play it off, and here it is that you see that he's not giving Kanan the full story, but he's doing things to kind of counter RAQ. RAQ is telling Kanan, RAQ is telling you that I'm crazy and whatnot. And here he kind of delivers the coup de grace, where it's RAQ keeps downplaying it. No, he's crazy. He's forgotten everything. He doesn't remember anything from that night. And Jukebox kind of mentioned during her conversation with Kanan that it's surprising that he didn't leave off with that, right? Knowing that you shot him on that night. And so here it is that we see this second scene with the two of them. It's the first scene was with him telling Kanan that he was his dad. But here's the ending. Things kind of come full circle where he admits that, no, I'm not crazy. Contrary to what your mom is telling you, I very much remember what happened on that night. I do know that you shot me, that you tried to kill me, but if you need any greater indication that you're my son, it should be that no, I'm not crazy. What I'm saying to you about being my son is not something I've dreamed up. I most certainly do remember you shooting me, but as your father, because I care for you and I don't want to hurt you in any way, That's why I'm not telling anyone. It's not because I'm crazy. I'm very well aware of what's going on. I know what I'm saying to you, and I'm going to protect you because that's what a father does for his son. And if Kanan needed any more convincing, that was pretty much it. Because you would have to question, this man has been around you. You know, he's coming to you. He's telling you that he's your dad. Your mom is telling you that he's crazy, that his brain is all messed up. But that moment, the two of you were there. You know that you looked him in the eyes. He looked you in the eyes. And you guys spoke before you shot him. Here it is that this time has gone by, 3 months or so. He sacrificed himself. He's told other people. He's made himself out to be like this forgetful person with some like brain damage or mental effect of being shot. He hasn't told anyone what you did. As he explains, kind of going back to the conversation that he had with, this lady that he's sleeping with, regardless of whatever wrong you've done or might be doing, when your kids know that you're there for them, you care about them, and you're willing to sacrifice for them, that you would put your life on the line for them, the rest of that stuff doesn't matter. And so here we see that with him and Howard, Howard is willing to let even Kanan, shoot him because Kanan is his son. It's like the coup de grace to RAQ's whole plan. Her avoiding admitting that this is her son's father. So it's like now that's going to have Kanan looking at her crazy. That's going to bring serious problems in their relationship. And I can't wait until next week to see how things work out. Jukebox. So my girl Jukebox is falling back and is in the booth laying down fire. Honestly, I was digging the song that she was singing. Usually I take no interest in the songs that the musicians or artists on the show are making, except for Jukebox, and like the Streets Need a Body song. I didn't even like the rap part of it, Jukebox part. It sounds like something about the Nicole situation. Crown and Lou are sitting outside the booth at the control panel listening. They hear the fire, right? You can see it, like they're feeling it, right? And it turns out that Lou's helped with the production, but the arrangement, the performance, the lyrics, all of that is Jukebox. Very, very talented girl. Beautiful song. When I heard it, to me, obviously the vocals are different. They don't sound the same, but it reminded me of that early Mary J. Blige feel. Like if you think of like what's the 411 My Life kind of vibe. I feel like from what we've seen so far, I like her music. I don't really care about any of the other artists. When she steps out the booth, though, you can see that they're finally giving her the attention that she really deserves, right? They love the music. But Crown, he kind of lacks tact. Not to say that he's wrong, not to say that he's right all the way either, but he points out to Jukebox that she's incredibly talented. The music is hot. But when you listen, the visual doesn't quite match up. Right. He states it's kind of cold-blooded, but he states that she looks like a New Edition member. Her clothes, obviously, she doesn't conform to the norm. That's who she is. And it's what she feels most comfortable with. I think it really speaks to, it's unfortunate that here it is that you have this incredibly talented young woman. And because she's a little bit different, but the expectation is that for her as a female artist, regardless of her talent, that she has to make herself palatable to the masses. She has to make herself look like someone that men would want to be with. And it's kind of sad, right? I think it kind of speaks to the time, as this was the early 90s. Now, I think people can play with their identity a bit more. You don't have to be you don't have to necessarily be a feminine presenting woman. I think people are more tolerant now, which is a benefit, though the music is terrible now comparably, right? I think the good part of it is that you're not expected to fit the mold. But unfortunately, while Jukebox has all this talent, Crown speaks and states that, people are going to expect her to look a certain kind of way. And that's not really the look that she's given. And, Lou kind of admonishes him, cleans things up, but explains much the same to Juke, that the sound is perfect, her vocals are crazy, but her image might be a problem. It's unfortunate because throughout the first season, we've seen this back and forth with Jukebox, trying to come into accepting her identity as a lesbian. Unfortunately, at the time she had Nicole there, but here it is that she's now going to have to start navigating this other thing. And she doesn't really have anyone around her to provide guidance. Maybe RAQ to some degree can help her navigate this. But, Lou tries to soften the blow a bit by explaining to her that as her uncle, he thinks she's beautiful. It kind of leads to them having this uncomfortable conversation, at which point she storms out because it's like, this is who she is. It's taken a while for her to get there, but seemingly for so long, she's dressed like this forever, as long as we've known her as a character. It's taken her some time to accept her sexuality, to be open with it. And now it's back to this thing of her being asked to hide a part of herself. that at least with regards to her public persona, her sort of being this attempt to force her back into the closet. For her to successfully sell records, they feel like she's going to have to present herself as someone that men would be physically attracted to. But the reality is, Jukebox isn't interested in men. She's going to have to pretend and present to be someone that she really isn't. Or at least that's what they're asking her to do. Over the last few episodes, as Jukebox is trying to figure out herself, she's trying to learn more about her mom, right? She knows Marvin and whatnot, but she's trying to better understand the situation with her mom. We saw in the last episode that she got some information from Bert, and either she visited where her mom was living or just someplace she was visiting, So here we see her once again following her mom, Kenya, and she follows her into what turns out to be a church where she's at choir practice. She goes into the building. Kenya notices her, but before she gets a chance to approach her, Jukebox runs away. And it's like building up to the two of them eventually meeting. You kind of have this thing, like a meet the parents kind of thing with Kanan and Howard, and then with Jukebox and Kenya, where Jukebox is kind of circling Kenya, making these little steps, kind of building up her confidence to make contact with her. I feel like eventually the two of them are going to end up speaking, much as we've seen between Kanan and Howard. And I think you're going to find out that there's more to the story of Kenya leaving Jukebox. I'm hoping that it's not like, the Thomases tend to mess things up, but I'm hoping that it's not that they ran her off or something like that, because I do find it questionable that here it is that she's been back in town from LA for like 3 years, has this child, and has made no efforts to contact her. So I'm curious to see how that plays out over the rest of the season. Was she really just a deadbeat mom, or is there more to the story? Because these Thomas kids, they lie and keep secrets like nobody's business. Marvin. I like the growth that they have Marvin undergoing, where it's like he still has some of his qualities from the earlier season. Like, he's not a punk or anything like that. He's still pretty funny. But here it is that you see him kind of growing into being the partner or manager that RAQ wanted him to be last season. He's becoming more dependable. He's less rash. He's thinking things through. And from last season to this season, you see him making an effort to improve as a person. He did wrong by Jukebox. He committed a number of wrongs last season, but you see him trying to improve. You see him trying to rebuild his relationship with Jukebox. Now, I do firmly believe eventually Marvin is going to end up clapping the anger management teacher's cheeks. In the meantime, him being in these classes is just absolutely comedy. He's behaving himself, right? This lady is just always on him. And here we see that, they're supposed to be sharing and whatnot, which he should love these classes because they have snacks, they have drinks. He should be loving it. You sit there for an hour and two, you just get to talk. These are things he likes to do. It should be paradise for him. But instead, he's still resistant to participating. But here she actually applies pressure. She forces him to share, right? To speak about things that makes him angry. When someone is like slick talking to him, his response thus far has been to just resort to violence. She explains that feeling anger is not the problem, but rather how you express it, how you deal with it. And so she discusses ways in which he might respond to a situation like that, where you take steps to calm yourself down, to de-escalate the situation. And it's like she has them perform these breathing exercises. He's resistant at first, but she insists on him participating. And we see him with like this special brand of comedy performing like this really exaggerated breathing exercise. It's like he's resistant, but you can see that bit by bit, she's going to end up breaking him down. He's probably going to end up getting into the class and benefiting from it. So at Baisley, there's this guy in a wheelchair who is upset, understandably so, about what's going on at Baisley, because with all these fiends in and out the building trying to buy and stuff like that, it's tying up the elevator. And it seems like there's just one elevator in the building. It's finally working, but he can never get on it because there's so many people. And so he's fussing about this. Early in the episode, we saw him with Kanan, right? When Kanan went to the building. And here we see him again. Marvin is going to Baisley, and he is just really aggressive with Marvin. Like, he's in a wheelchair. I thought Marvin was like going to kick him out that chair, but I find it so funny that in this moment, he's like, I felt like Marvin was just going to take off on this guy. But for whatever reason, in the midst of it, the stuff from the anger management class about breathing, he decides to apply it to the situation. And it ends up being pretty hilarious because here it is that this guy is just yelling at Marvin. And Marvin, you can see him trying to control himself. You know, the guy is just pushing and pushing. And eventually Marvin just randomly stops in the middle of talking to this guy, takes a deep breath, and actually smiles at him, which catches him off guard. It's like these little moments of comedy in the midst of stuff going wrong, having Marvin, like, he can irritate you at times with the nonsense that he does, but then it's like he just has these moments of random, unexpected comedy that just absolutely make you crack up. I was dying laughing in this scene, you know, where Marvin just like randomly starts breathing. He completely changes his approach to the guy. He apologizes. He hustles the people off the elevator, prevents the other people from getting on the elevator. And it's like, you have this guy who's just trash talking him, like just trash talking to him the whole time. But his change in behavior changes the entire situation around. It's pure comedy. I'm planning to drop a new recap and review episode by each Monday. Some weeks it'll be on Sunday. To ensure you don't miss any episodes, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and check out my Rolling with RAQ playlist. Go ahead and click that thumbs up button if you like what you saw, and go ahead and share it on social media.